From the News Channel 8 studios, let's talk live with your hosts, Natasha Barrett and Melanie Hastings.
School is back in session, and if you ask any kid in town, it's tough to shake off those summer wiggles. So how can you help your child focus on what's being taught in the classroom? Well, one way to help is to pinpoint just what kind of learner he or she is. Ann Dolin is the author of the book, Homework Made Simple. She's here today to talk about how you can help your child succeed. Good to see you once again, Ann.
Thanks, Melanie.
Yeah, it is that time again, homework time.
Oh, gosh, it sure is.
And we parents, we want to help our kids, not do it for them, but, you know, give them a little assist. So the question is, what kind of a learner is my child? How do we know?
That's such a great question. Well, really there are three types of learning styles, and there's a lot of misinformation about learning styles. Sometimes people think, well, I'm just a visual learner, I'm just an auditory learner, I have to learn hands-on. But the truth is, everybody learns through all three modalities. The trick is figuring out which is your strongest. In my book, Homework Made Simple, I have a learning styles questionnaire, but you can find them on the web too. But really, you'll kind of know what type of learner your child is.
What are some of the cues we're getting from our kids?
For example, have you heard the saying, in one ear and out the other?
Mm-hmm. So that's an auditory.
Well, if you're constantly, you feel like you're constantly giving directions to your child, and they're really not hearing you, it could be that they need it in writing too, that maybe they're a visual learner. And if you put, for example, you want them to do 3 things in the morning: get dressed, brush their teeth, put their shoes on, that has to be written out for them if you feel like you're repeating yourself all the time. And then when it comes to studying, certainly some people have a preferred modality as well.
Wow. Okay, so say we've determined what kind of a learner our child is, then what are some of the strategies that we should employ as homework helpers?
Great question. Well, a couple of things. The first is, if you have a visual learner, a child that really, you know, they take a book and they want to look at the pictures first, even in their textbook, they're more focused on photographs. That's something you want to encourage them to do.
Okay,
so,
you brought a textbook
I
in.
did.
And
I
it has some pictures.
I did. I brought a good old textbook. And you can see here, I've used highlighting tape with this student because with most school systems, kids aren't allowed to write in their books and they're not allowed to highlight. Highlighting is a fabulous technique as long as the student doesn't get highlighter happy. Sometimes kids think, oh, I'll just highlight everything, and before you know it, they've highlighted the whole page. Well, the trick is to read a section, ask yourself, what's the most important thing there, and then go back and highlight it. And if you can't write in your book, using something like highlighting tape that's removable is the perfect idea. So your student can find what is the most important, and when he's ready to review it and he's done studying, he just removes the tape.
How nice.
It's a great product.
I have never seen that, and I have to say, I wish they had that in my day when I was studying.
Parents say that.
But this is great, because then when the child is reviewing the chapter, they go right to the highlighted text, and there you go. It makes it a lot simpler for them.
Absolutely. And kids that have difficulty focusing as they're reading often do well with reading guides, and reading guides are just simple ways of tracking. So if your child skips lines or has a hard time getting from beginning to end, try a reading guide.
So show us how that works.
Sure. Well, a couple of ways. The first is that they can just look at what's in the colored area, or if they have a reading guide like this,
you can follow it down the page as they're reading?
Yes. This is a little bit busy, so I tell the kids to flip it over, and they can go down like this. You know what? Melanie, a good old-fashioned note card does the same thing.
Okay. Speaking of note cards, one of the tricks that you help your child with might be to some like note cards, and you could write the question on one side, maybe the answer on the back. Flip cards.
Yes.
Is that still something people use?
Absolutely. You know, it's so funny because parents love note cards. They grew up with note cards, but here's another way, a different way of kind of doing the same thing. Let's say that your student is studying some main terms for a test. He would write the term here, and a definition or an explanation here. So now, instead of flipping the cards and using note cards, he can simply fold his paper and quiz himself. And really, that's what you want for your child. You want your child to be as independent as possible. So if you give them the skill, then they can start to quiz themselves. Who was Betsy Ross? And see if they know the answer and keep going along.
So he doesn't actually have to have a partner this way. He can do it himself.
That's correct.
Some kids like to have a partner. Yes. It works for them.
Right.
Not so for others?
True. An auditory learner loves to learn with other people. In fact, studies show that you learn about 70% of what you discuss but only about 10% of what you hear. So when you talk about it, instead of just listening it to a lecture, it's so much more meaningful. So if you have an auditory learner in your home and he has a test the next day, consider quizzing him, or better yet, let him teach it to you.
Okay. Now, if we're talking about where to study, where's the best place to study, traditionally someone would go to a desk, maybe in their room. Is that the best place to go?
You know, it depends on the age of the child. Certainly older kids, that's perfectly fine. But if you find your child studying in their room, and you go up there a half hour later and they've done nothing, it's not the best place because it's just too distracting.
Yeah, a lot of rooms have too many things going on, right?
Yeah,
You've got your cell phone, you've got your TV, you've got your computer.
Yeah. So usually a place like the dining room or a home office is good because it's within earshot of the parent.
Okay, and then they can ask for homework help, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, but the other thing about being in a social area of the house, such as what you're just telling us in the dining room or so, there's noise in the house, and it's not related to your homework doing. So is that, can that throw somebody off, or is that a good thing for some learners?
It depends on the learner. For some kids, they thrive in the hum of a busy area, and they actually get more done and they're more productive. But you know what, other kids, those sounds really bother them, and that's the child that really needs to have a quiet space. You may find the child that likes the hum of a busy area is the type of kid that can have an iPod on while he's studying and can do perfectly well, but other kids not so well. So you have to see where your child gravitates. If they naturally go to the kitchen table, they're probably the child that likes that environment. But if they're really moving to another place just to get away from those distractions, that's better for them. Okay, lots of good ideas there as homework time is here. Thanks so much, Ann Dolin, for all your great tips. Well, thank you. And coming up next, could love and money be at the root of your relationship problem? We're going to tell you how you can make it work. And just a little bit later, some tips from Stylo Tours. Lauren Rotman. Hi, Lauren, on how you can look hot as the weather cools down. Check out our blog at tbd.com. Enter in the keywords, Let's Talk Live. We'll be right back.